Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the Bitcoin News Show right here on the CryptoCast Network, the weekly show, of course, where we talk about Bitcoin. We have a panel of people, and of course, this day is no exception. We have a bunch of awesome people to talk Bitcoin. But before we do that, guys, we are screen sharing our website here at CryptoCast.network, where you can find our YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, iTunes, and RSS feeds. And we have some merch on there if you guys want to support us. And if you really want to support the show and the work that we do here, as this is a community-supported YouTube channel, we do have a donation address there on the bottom, and we just received a couple donations, guys. So really just want to say thank you so much. Shout out to whoever that is. It's kind of funny, we had like an uneven balance like normal Bitcoiners do with 10 or 8 digits on there, but somebody just gave us a tip to actually give us an even amount. So thank you to whoever that was, guys. We really appreciate it. And we're just going to give a shout out to a couple of conferences here, guys. We don't get paid to do this, but we really want to give a shout out to some of the people that we love in the community here. We got Tone Vase's conference coming up just next week, guys, in Malta. This is going to be a big one, Understanding Bitcoin, and it's really a technical conference for non-technical people. So that's going to be really interesting. You guys are going to be learning from some of the best in the industry. We're talking Francis, we're talking Adam Fisker, even Satoshi Labs. So lots of good stuff, lots of good people in here, really intelligent people. Christian Decker, some Blockstream people. It's going to be great. There is still 36 seats left at 0.1 per Bitcoin. And then finally, one more conference to shout out, guys, the Lightning Network Boltathon. It's going to be pretty awesome because it's going to be in a conference that's entirely online. So you don't have to go anywhere, guys, and it's going to be the same week. So that's next week. There's going to be some awesome presenters in there talking about the actual Lightning Network and teaching you how to use it, guys, from the people that work on this stuff every single day. So we're talking, there's going to be people from BTCPayServer in there. We got Pierre Richard, Alex Bosworth. So it's going to be really great. Looking forward to that. So make sure you guys check that out. Again, both these conferences fall on April 5th through the 7th. And with that aside, let's go ahead and stop the screen share, guys, and get right into your quick bits section so we can discuss quickly the week's topics here. Bring up my notes. Basically, we got a few things to go over here before we get into the topic. So we have Jack Mallers, guys, the guy who's created the Zap wallet, has now just published an update to his wallet. It's really interesting because he has created the user interface and user experience for managing channels. So this is, again, another evolution of Lightning Network and the evolution of how we're going to understand channels. As I always try to tell you guys, the channel management is going to mostly be put in the background one day in the advanced settings, so where you'll never have to actually mess with that. But it's interesting to see this evolution towards that goal. And then we have a couple other Lightning stories here. We got a popular Lightning wallet, ACINQ, guys. This is pretty cool for Android. They are now fully bidirectional. You can now send and receive. So Lightning is, again, maturing. People are opening up more features. We are opening up the floodgates more and more. And this is another example of that. It's a great wallet, guys. Check it out. They've been doing Lightning stuff since the beginning. ACINQ, they're one of the three or four teams that's working on the Lightning Network right now. So check that out. And then we got Malta-based exchange Zebpay. Has integrated Bitcoin Lightning payments on its mobile app. So you can actually make exchange. You can actually do exchange transactions now with the Lightning Network over your mobile wallet. So that's kind of pretty cool. Check that out, guys. And then finally, the last Lightning story here, a Bitcoin Lightning web standard called WebLN is starting to gain some traction as some of these larger Lightning Network services are beginning to integrate it. Some of the larger Lightning Network wallets, things like Lightning Spin, things like that. So check that out. That's interesting. Again, just more evolution of the Lightning Network. Really looking forward to seeing all this come to fruition. Then we got a Bitcoin Core full node and C Lightning running on an Android smartphone. This is pretty cool, guys. Grubel's tweeted this out. We got somebody that's actually running a full Bitcoin node and C Lightning on their Android smartphone device. So that is pretty interesting. That's going to be because a lot of people right now, there's a lot of debate on full nodes and mobile devices and things like that. So this kind of bridges a gap. Pretty interesting to see. Check that out. Then we got Suredbits, another Lightning story, guys. Suredbits launches a new feature, which is basically futures data for their Lightning-powered pay-per-request Bitcoin API. So you guys can check that out if you're a developer. If you guys need data, this is really cool. Check out Suredbits because they are already doing great work democratizing the data for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies on there. And again, you can pay with Lightning. Very, very interesting. Niclas Dorier, guys, the creator of NBitcoin and BTCPayServer. You guys all know him and love him. He has now published a new article called The Ethics of Money and Bitcoin. And I highly encourage a lot of people to check this out because there is a lot of animosity between altcoins and Bitcoins. And, it seems that the divide is getting greater and greater and greater. So this is really important to check out. A lot of interesting stuff in there. Really hope you guys check it out. It references a lot, some Austrian economic stuff as well, Rothbard stuff. So check that out. Very interesting. And finally, the last story here, we got private investments in some of the largest crypto mining companies like Bitfury, Bitmain, and Canaan have underperformed outright, just owning Bitcoin, guys. This is pretty awesome to see. I mean, a lot of people are like, what should I do? Like, what should I invest in? Guys, just buy Bitcoin. That's the only thing we're ever going to recommend that you do on this channel. So check that out, guys. Really interesting to see. And with that aside, let's go ahead and introduce our amazing panelists today. Really excited to get started here. We got a lot of great people. So let's go ahead and introduce first Mr. Anders himself. You guys, this guy runs a bunch of meetups and has been a long-time Bitcoiner. Anders, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me on, Vortex. It's an honor and a pleasure. I always watch your show and never miss it. So thank you very much. Yeah, I have a couple of meetups. The most busy one, the one in Los Angeles, Century City. And then also I'm involved in math.com.
Yeah, man, awesome. You had me out there for a meetup over there, I believe, in Central City, and that was awesome, guys. That was fantastic. We got to talk to like 20, 30, 40 Bitcoiners over there. It was awesome. The first few rows were all full, so thank you so much for that, Anders. That was a great time, man. And then also joining us, we got Mr. James here. This is really cool, guys, from teachbitcoin.io. I always give James a shout out, like in succession. Yeah, with two other people, man. I always like to give you a shout out, James, along with Justin Moon and Jimmy Song. These guys are the main guys that are in Bitcoin right now. With courses, with actual Bitcoin courses. We also got to give a shout out, of course, to Ivan on Tech. He's got a few Bitcoin courses, but you guys solely focus on Bitcoin, and that's pretty cool. So that's awesome, James. So thanks for being on the show, man. We've had you on before, and really, you bet, man. Really excited to have you on again. And then we got everybody knows them, guys. Everybody can recognize them. Come on, this is pretty simple. If you guys are actually watching the podcast, make sure to check out this guy's content. But we got Ken Bozak, the one and only, joining us on the show. Ken, how you doing?
How goes it, bro? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, I'd love to have you on the show. I've just did a podcast with you on your show, so guys, make sure you check it out. Ken does a lot of content, a lot of podcasts, interviews a lot of important people in the space. So definitely follow Ken, give him a follow. I of course have all these guys' Twitter accounts on as I was on the show notes. And finally, joining us once again at 6 in the morning, guys, his time. We have to give him a huge shout out for that, Mr. Stefan Livera of the Stefan Livera podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show. And look, as we were just saying before, I'm not the only one who just woke up. Ken also just woke up as well, and it's 3 p.m. his time. So we've got that in common.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, I love you guys. Yeah, so no matter if you're waking up at 3 p.m. or 6 a.m., we will get you your Bitcoin news. So thanks a lot, Stefan, man, for joining on the show. I just got done with your Tour de Mister episode. That was great, fantastic, guys, talking about days Bitcoin destroyed and what actually gives Bitcoin its value. Check it out, you guys got to check it out. Very awesome. All right,
thanks.
You bet, man. Let's go ahead and get started, guys. We're already a few minutes into the show here, so let's get started with the first topic. Bitmain IPO has expired. This is pretty big news in the Bitcoin community, as Bitmain was the largest miner for some time there in Bitcoin and all of crypto. We had their initial public offering to be it was filed in September 26th of 2018, but now it has expired just recently, March 26th. So this actually was on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange over there for about 6 months or so. They originally wanted to raise $18 billion, guys, on this IPO. But despite roughly earning 700 million last year, guess what? They lost over half of that by holding so much Bitcoin cash. In fact, reports were that they were holding over 1 million Bitcoin cash. And now, of course, they're having huge competition from Canaan and Halong and Samsung. So let's ask you first, Stefan. What does this mean for Bitmain? What does this mean for Bitcoin? Is Bitmain down and out? Because we know that they have done huge amounts of shady practices in the past in the Bitcoin community. What does this mean for Bitmain? Are they going away? And what does this mean for Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining?
Yeah, so look, a few I guess maybe I'll just offer more like a macroeconomic comment. I think in order to be a miner, you must correctly, to do it well, you can speculate on the cycle, right? So people would purchase more equipment during the bull run, and what you might see is a lot of people rushing in, right? But ultimately, if you need a good underlying a few things. You need like the talent to create good mining equipment, like, i.e. good dollar per gigahash rate. And then you would also need a good electricity, right? And so on. But Bitmain, perhaps they just caught the cycle at the right time, right place, and obviously caught that massive bull run that we saw in sort of 2017. Now, as others have commented, to some extent, it's kind of like if you come at the king, right? If you sort of come in and attack Bitcoin, you best not miss, right? That's the saying. So it may end up just serving as a lesson to other people that we all learn, and we learn from other people's mistakes. And so now new mining companies will sort of realize, hang on, okay, Bitcoin is the thing that's actually going to last, or more likely to last than any other coin. So if you try to focus too much on some other coin, or if you try to attack Bitcoin, you're not going to do that well. And we're all learning, and then that means the next company that comes will try to do better. That's my comment.
Gotcha. So great comments. Real quick, just a follow-up question. Do you think do you think the industry then did actually learn their lessons? Do you think that it's going to have a greater impact on the mining economy as a whole, to, like, for example, maybe not try to support another soft fork against core developers or something like that? Or
yeah, that's a great point, Vortex. Great point. And I think I can sort of see two flip sides there. One would be, yeah, people are learning. The other flip side would just be, hey, we're just in this sort of eternal September, and there's always new people coming in, and they don't understand the norms. They don't understand the way Bitcoin is, right? And quick examples would be, if you listen to, say, I'm not trying to attack her, but if you listen to, say, Angela Walsh's interview with Peter McCormack, now it's sort of clear that her perception of Bitcoin is sort of like top-down power, right? Whereas Bitcoin is more like bottom-up driven. And this is kind of one of those differences in how do you view the law? Is the law kind of driven from the bottom up by society, or is it kind of set from the top? Right. And this is one crucial difference that we must understand if we want to really understand what Bitcoin is. And the corollary is, you need to understand that if you want to be a Bitcoin miner, you need to sort of understand the norm, understand how we sort of come to consensus.
Great points. Yeah, I mean, it seems that people didn't quite understand consensus very much back in 2017. This is a very much a bottom-up approach, and I don't think that was a great comment. So I don't think that people during the whole Segwit 2x thing, they just didn't realize how bottom-up Bitcoin really was. A lot of these big companies tried to throw their weight and their money around, and we saw that they, of course, failed when the Segwit 2x failed. So Ken, let's get your comments in here, man. What do you think about this? I mean, is Bitmain shady practices? Is this vindication for all the anti-Bitcoin tech? Behavior that we've seen from them over the past few years?
Yeah, this is karma at its finest. Crypto karma coming to get them, man. But what's funny is, they didn't go ICO. They didn't go STO with a utility token dividend. They went legacy IPO. It serves them right for going against everything. Like, they could have incorporated blockchain somewhere. I mean, even, Kodak and Long Island Iced Tea went somewhere blockchain. They went legacy with an IPO. They could have done anything from an ICO to an STO, created a utility token, anything. But I don't know. I just don't see any room for Bitmain right now anymore. They're sort of like the I would say like a VCR company. we really don't need VCR companies anymore, right? We don't need those Costco wholesales. We can shop online with like Amazon, and like you said, they're getting more and more competition as the days go by. It was a last ditch effort, right? Like, this was their Hail Mary, and it didn't work out. So I don't see them being around for the next bull run, unfortunately for them. But we've proven that we don't need anybody like Bitmain in our ecosystem. We don't need them in the community. They're almost a toxic provider. It's not symbiotic. It's more parasitic what they provide. So good riddance to Bitmain.
Yeah, so let's ask you, James. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, because we have seen the Bitmain is still a big company. They still have a lot of cash still left. Do you see them going away anytime soon? And or do you see just competition completely eating their lunch? And is this all healthy for Bitcoin?
First of all, I think Stefan's comments were excellent in this regard. I don't know the internals of Bitmain, nor do I know their financial history that well. But fundamentally, the way Bitcoin works is, in absence of any threat to the system, there are going to be pooling pressures, like scaling efficiencies and supply chain efficiencies. If in absence of any real considerable threat, there is going to be one big miner. There is going to be one big manufacturer of hash rate. And so it could be that through mismanagement or just bad luck, as Stefan described, bad forecasting or bad planning, that Bitmain is no longer the leading miner or the leading hash rate manufacturer. But there's nothing to say that they won't be replaced by another player that takes the same role. So I think that's fundamentally important to understand. Is like, you know, we're in a time where Bitcoin is, you know, it's really lightly regulated. It's not really accepted as an alternative money by most governments. Hence, you know, we're going to talk about KYC in a second, but it's not really a threat in most countries that we know of. At least not as much as it could be. And in that scenario, you know, scale efficiency is always going to reign powerful, and you know, these pooling pressures on the manufacturing and the mining pool side, they remain. Those dynamics don't disappear.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, in the absence of power, right, in a power vacuum, somebody usually tends to step in there. But I think what we're seeing right now is just a bunch of other competition kind of filling that. So I don't see maybe one particular player filling that like Bitmain did again. And hopefully the next player will, of course, have this whole history to draw upon from, this whole UASF history to draw upon from. So very interesting comment. Thank you, James. Anders, what are your thoughts on the discussion so far and Bitmain's IPO expiring? Is this big news? Is this not? Do you care? What do you think?
Well, I care. I think it's great that it expired because they're not a good player. They've been trying to do something very bad to Bitcoin. They tried to move everyone over to their own coin so they could continue with the covert ASIC boost, so that they, as the only manufacturer, would have a huge advantage, like 30% electricity advantage or something like that on their own miners. So I think it's wonderful that that was such a failure for them. And all these Bitcoiners who were smart back when the fork happened and said, wait, that's a great opportunity. Now I can increase my actual true Bitcoin holding by 10 to 20% because these guys created a new coin and they are trying to go the other way and support the new coin, the Btrash, to grow in value. So they dumped the Bitcoin on the market to get the Btrash up, which was great for people who wanted to have Bitcoin. And they have lost a lot of money on that. And yeah, the balance sheet has been totally shred to pieces. I think it's wonderful. They get us, they deserve. It's karma.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and a couple of the panelists mentioned that as well. This really, in my opinion, is absolutely karma because Bitmain has been anti-Bitcoin for years now. I mean, you mentioned a great point bringing up the covert ASIC boost, Anders, because this was a huge saga too in Bitcoin. Basically, Bitmain was using something called covert ASIC boost that essentially gave them around 30% hash advantage over all of the other mining manufacturers out there. And but the problem was that SegWit, this new upgrade to Bitcoin, was not compatible with this covert ASIC boost. So for just forever and ever, Bitmain was stalling and the actual adoption of SegWit purely for their own financial gain. So they, for my opinion, have cared nothing for Bitcoin almost from the very, very beginning. So we have the covert ASIC boost saga, we have the amp lead saga, right? Then we have them supporting the NYA and SegWit 2x, and Bitcoin Cash was actually created from Bitmain, you know, from Jihan Wu. His miner activated hard fork was turned into Bitcoin Cash. Now, he didn't really fully intend for that to happen. That he just kind of put it out there, and that's what happened. But he fully intended to not support Bitcoin. That's the bottom line. And so he, of course, went all in on Bitcoin Cash. They have over 1 million Bitcoin Cash. Essentially, it's the central bank of Bitcoin Cash over there. And so, yeah, we've just seen Bitmain from the beginning just be anti-competitive. Anti-Bitcoin, and now you know, we have. If you guys go and talk to some of these miners at some of these conferences, they will all tell you how dirty Bitmain is with their anti-competitive, business processes and procedures that they have done. I mean, just terribly shady things. You go and talk to anybody. But so, from my opinion, I think I'm really, really glad to see this. This is a bit of a vindication. Jihan has already, stepped down from CEO. So I think that the Bitcoin community, this is a big win for the Bitcoin community and sort of an ending of a saga. I don't see Bitmain going away anytime soon. They can just they can just keep making some more miners. They absolutely will not be number one. They're actually being outcompeted by every other single miner on the planet right now. Literally, their latest chip can't keep up. So it's going to be fun to watch them, have another slow grind until maybe it'll take another couple of years. But I just don't see them going away immediately. But they are definitely fallen from grace. So great points, guys. Really thank you guys for that. We're going to go ahead and go on to the next topic. But before we do, we really would recommend for everybody to go ahead and give us a thumbs up. We really appreciate it, guys. This helps us get into more people's feeds. And if you guys are listening to the audio feed, we really would appreciate if you could give us a review on iTunes. We have a bunch of them on there. We really appreciate all the feedback from there. And just give a shout out to a couple people in the chat again. Guys, we got audio, video tweaker. We got Uvas in here. We got a bunch of people all talking Bitcoin in here. So if you guys are joining us live, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. If not, make sure to join us, of course, in the comments below. But so let's go ahead and get into the next topic, guys. We got 2 more to go. This one's pretty interesting because a lot of people were actually requesting that we discuss this topic here. So this is about VeriBlock. So VeriBlock's Bitcoin-backed security protocol has gone live today, and so or just the other day. And so I want to talk a little bit about this because they've essentially spent a year on testnet now. And what this essentially does is it extends the Bitcoin's blockchain security protection from 51% attacks to other non-Bitcoin blockchains. So it allows any other blockchain to sort of plug into their protocol in here. And all it does is essentially uses Bitcoin, a lot like timestamps and things like that. So they created this protocol called Proof of Proofs that is essentially just using Bitcoin's mining hash power and security to verify things. And so this isn't something entirely new because they're actually just using the Bitcoin op return. And it's not something entirely new, but I do want to get the feedback from the panel, see what they think. And first, of course, we're going to go with James, the Bitcoin instructor here. James, so I want to get your thoughts on this, man. Like, what do you think of this VeriBlock, them just using this op return? Because they seem to be accounting for between 20 to 30% of the transactions out there. Is this good or bad for Bitcoin? Because real quick before you answer, we have had some big people in the space weigh in. We have had people like Jameson Lopp and Peter Todd say that they don't think it's a big issue right now. But go ahead. I'm very curious to hear what your thoughts are on this. Is this good or bad for Bitcoin? And is this interesting at all?
It is interesting in the sense that I guess my short answer is the market's going to decide. I guess the fear that people have is that our blocks are going to be full of these op return transactions. So maybe just to step back a little bit. So from what I understand, VeriBlock is the ideas aren't really new, right? It's very similar to merge mining, with the difference that it's not the miner who puts the sidechain hash into the block. You have these tertiary miners, and these guys they take the hash, the block hash from the sidechain or VeriBlock, and then they actually broadcast their own transaction with that header hash in an op return output, right? So they pay for it. And so I guess one of the concerns is what happens if the main chain blocks are entirely full, and all these miners, all these tertiary miners from VeriBlock will be competing to mine the next block, right? So if the value or the reward of mining VeriBlocks becomes extremely high, I guess the fear is that Bitcoin blocks will be full of miner attempts, right, to mine the next block, and they have a certain algorithm to compute like the strong chain in VeriBlock. That's part of their paper. But for me, it's like the market will decide where the demand is. If the demand is extremely high for VeriBlock transactions, and in the sense that it becomes higher than transactions for Bitcoin, then the Bitcoin block will be used as a de facto, data model for VeriBlock, and that's fine. The market will decide. What I don't see is how VeriBlock will become more valuable as a media of transaction, right? Because if we only use the Bitcoin blockchain for VeriBlock commitments, then essentially what we're doing is we're extending we'll still have transactions. We'll have transactions in VeriBlock transactions, but we'll have more data, right? We'll have a heavier blockchain because we're extending it, obviously, with the VeriBlock blockchain. And we're going to have less verification, less decentralization. So it's not clear to me how VeriBlock offers something that is more interesting from a transaction point of view than Bitcoin itself.
Yeah, very interesting. So I think that one of VeriBlock's arguments is that they are providing more utility for Bitcoin and thus providing more value to Bitcoin, bringing value to the Bitcoin network. So that is interesting. Me personally, I think that there's there's got to be a better way to do it than just using every single op return.
Yeah.
I know that you know, Peter Todd's project that he's working on, open timestamps. I think this is something similar. Can you tell us maybe how those two differentiate, if you know?
Sure. So open timestamps, the idea of open timestamps is to commit any off-chain information to the block, so you can verifiably prove that this set of information existed at a certain point in time by simply looking at the height at which it was mined. And there is some similarity there in terms of supply and demand. So if there is massive demand in the world for open timestamps, and all the transactions that we see in Bitcoin now are timestamp transactions, op returns with certain data committed to it, and the fees become so high that regular transactions are priced out. It's a similar criticism, I guess, right? You're using a Bitcoin block space for non-Bitcoin transactions, but again, it's a demand supply story. So if the world values these open timestamps so much, then they will find their way into the Bitcoin blockchain. There's no way to prevent it. You could remove the op return field, but there's always some way to encode data into a transaction. Like even the number of outputs in a transaction in a very basic way, that's some kind of data being encoded in there. So that because I can't prevent it, or we cannot prevent it from happening, the demand will determine whether these things really consume a lot of block space.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, it is going to see, because we have seen, of course, a lot of block space be occupied in the early days of Bitcoin.
Right.
With things like Satoshi Dice, we saw
Right.
that take up a huge amounts of block space before Bitcoin was
Right.
really being used for money. So this is interesting. So very much thank you for that, James. Let's go ahead and ask Stefan. What are your thoughts on this? Is this kind of good or bad for Bitcoin? Is it like James just said? Is it just going to be determined by market demand, or do you think that this actually adds more utility to Bitcoin, making Bitcoin more valuable?
Okay, a few different points here. I would first say, look, it seems a bit odd that they're pushing this whole blockchain narrative, and we need other blockchains, and we're going to use Bitcoin security to leverage, to sort of, as it were, piggyback off Bitcoin security. That's one factor. But the flip side of that argument would be something like, hey, we need a fee market for Bitcoin. Eventually, what's going to happen is we need enough people who want Bitcoin transactions on the chain such that, there's a security incentive. So I could see some argument there that, well, fine, if you want to pay the price to put your data onto the blockchain, well, this is the going rate. And over time, we should anticipate that fee, like as blocks fill up eventually, let's say over the next 10 to 15 years, as people start to really use Bitcoin more, as adoption increases, well, then we will start to see VeriBlock may potentially, their business model might not even be viable, right? Because it may just cost too much for them to put in an op return compared to economic transactions from, say, a full reserve Bitcoin bank, where each transaction on chain is, let's say, the channel open, or in 10 or 15 years, who knows what sort of technology we'll have, and each, what we might call the economic weight of every transaction, may be so much more, so they can justify paying much more of a fee. Whereas VeriBlock, well, it depends what their profit model is. As James was saying, it kind of is driven by, how much profit can they make from doing this blockchain service that they're doing.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see if their profits will outweigh the fee costs, because I think they are covering the fee costs right now with their protocol. They're actually paying Bitcoin fees to make this thing a reality. So that's really interesting to see, because we obviously are going to need a fee market. Bitcoin is going to need fee markets to survive after the block subsidy goes away. But yeah, this is really interesting. Do you think do you see this as valuable to other blockchains, where because their whole pitch is that, look, we're going to provide Bitcoin security for other blockchains? Do you even think that this is needed at this layer, at layer one, or do you think that people are just going to mostly plug into the Lightning Network and bypass layer one to connect to Bitcoin directly for the most part?
Right, that's a good point. I haven't considered that too deeply. However, there was, to my mind, it does spring to my mind, and I'm sure you guys might have seen it, Z-Man's post, and it was kind of a bit of a seminal post on the Lightning Network on why the Lightning Network may be best as a single asset network, right? So essentially, he, in that post, if I understand him correctly, he was basically making an argument that if you were to try these cross-chain atomic swaps, the other party, if they're getting a bad rate, so to speak, like a bad foreign exchange rate, they may just welsh on the deal and not go through with the deal. So you wouldn't lose, right? Because it's an atomic swap. It only goes through if both sides go through. However, if the other side goes, oh, hey, you're giving me this bad rate that you locked in like a little while ago, I'm just not going to go through on it. Maybe that's an argument why it might not. But as to whether other approaches, right? If there are other ways of connecting in with the Lightning Network, I'm probably not the best person to speculate on that.
No problem. Great points, Stefan. Great points. Let's go to Ken here. Ken, so what are your thoughts on this? Is this just another example of sort of Bitcoin eating the rest of the crypto industry? Is this another example of people using the actual using Bitcoin for what it is, which is the biggest and most secure open decentralized blockchain on the market, almost the only one that's actually at scale? Is this just another example of sort of Bitcoin eating all the crypto's lunch? What are your thoughts on this?
All of that, plus it's a little bit of creating an altcoin to steal Bitcoin's clout. Why do you need this altcoin to use Bitcoin's security? Just use Bitcoin. I mean, you can cut out all those middlemen that you just created. And just like Audio Video Weaker just said in the chat, they're going to face a lot of stiff competition in the future. This is a great service, but it doesn't revolve around VeriBlock. This is a Bitcoin service, right? This is what Bitcoin provides in its security. Just seeing them create a protocol that's going to be copy pasted, decentralized, open sourced, and I'm not going to have to use your, manifested shitcoin to use this, Bitcoin security timestamp features. I think that it's a great highlight that, it's not just money, it is programmable money. This is highlighting the use case of the programmable money aspect, but it's also clouding it with a shitcoin filter. It doesn't need to exist. It has no need to exist. The features are great. The use case is great. The implementation is awesome. I mean, we're going to see Bitcoin's timestamps be used for property management, title ownership transfers. If I got a tattoo, probably going to, look at some timestamp, making sure I was born on the right date. They're going to be using Bitcoin's blockchain for a lot of things more than just, money. But I don't think that VeriBlock has longevity in it. I think that it's a great building block, a great stepping stone, but it's just dust waiting to become dust.
Yeah, great points. I mean, Bitcoin being more than money. And of course, this is what we've been trying to tell people on this channel and World Crypto Network for years, is that Bitcoin really is, of course, this new financial system, this programmable money. I mean, we've never had anything like this before, this open programmable money. So anybody can work on it. This is just still fascinates me to this day.
Large institutional corporations, especially cybersecurity and tech companies, buying Bitcoin not as a means of currency or store of value, but as a tool to program on top of or implement into their technology, or to increase the services they provide as a security provider. It's more than just a hedge against financial collapse. This is a technology that can only be used in forms of Satoshis.
Yep, absolutely great point. I mean, this is more than money. And really, what's great to see is that things like this, like Bitcoin being used as an application platform and, as a money, it's all being simultaneous, guys. The financialization of Bitcoin is going on. The speculation network effects is still going on. This is all happening at once. People are using it for remittance. People are using it for development. This is all happening at once. And we're to this day and every second of every day still trying to figure out what Bitcoin is, what we can do with it. But the answer keeps coming back as more and more and more and more. So great points, Ken. Yeah, so let's go ahead and go to Anders. Anders, I think you deal a little bit with finance and Bitcoin, with lending and things. What are your thoughts on Bitcoin being used as more than a money? Because we have seen that Bitcoin is going to be used in a lot of lending platforms, and that might be like the next big thing. What are your thoughts on that and using Bitcoin as more than a money?
Well, I think that Bitcoin will be used for a lot more than money. But for these other coins or whatever it is, assets, I don't think it makes sense to have them on a separate blockchain and then realize our blockchain is not secure. So let's point over to Bitcoin's blockchain, because you can't just put it straight on top of Bitcoin. Like Bisq is doing with their platform, and I highly recommend anyone who's like either for or against utility coins to first read BISC's white paper to understand that there actually is a use case, and it does make a lot of sense. And what they prove is like they take normal Bitcoin and then they color it. It's a custom solution they've been working on for years. It's going live in a couple of months, I believe. And then Bitcoin is being used for something else than just money. It's being used as the secure platform for an asset going on top of it. And it doesn't make sense to use anything but Bitcoin because it's not as such expensive to use Bitcoin, but it's by far the most secure. So why would you even think about making another blockchain? And that's why it doesn't make sense to have any other blockchains than Bitcoin, as far as I see. And I believe that's also what Blockstream is doing with their liquid network. They're putting assets on top of Bitcoin. That's what makes sense, not something else. So yeah, Bitcoin will be used for a lot more than money, but money is the primary use case, and it's because Bitcoin is being used as money, because it has a valuable token that can incentivize miners. That's what gives it its security, and that's what makes it possible to be used for a lot of other things.
Yeah, great points. I mean, this is what we've been kind of trying to tell people for years again, is that, Bitcoin really is, there's going to be this single source of truth. Like, this is where you are going to go to get verification on anything. So like Ken said, we're going to be putting all sorts of stuff on top of Bitcoin for verification, whether that's your mortgage or your lease or whatever. Like, this is the world's world's only source of truth that everybody can identify on. And in fact, every 10 minutes, the entire planet agrees on a set of Bitcoin's transactions. Like, literally, Bitcoin has been going on for 10 years with not a single fraudulent transaction being put into the blockchain. Every single transaction, has been legit. So this is just fascinating to see it continue to go and being used for more than money. This is what we've been trying to tell people, that look, because it's the most secure, because it's open, we can build everything and anything that we need on top of that, on layers above that, because it's good enough. That's what same what happened with the TCP/IP protocol. Back in the day, it was good enough. Same with OSI. Like, network cards used to only be able to have like 10 computers on the network. We evolved and we evolved and we evolved, and this is just a simple progression, especially the Lightning Network. And that's why a lot of us were so excited to see the Lightning Network come to fruition. I mean, this is something that we were predicting for years, that Bitcoin will somehow be able to do and scale and have these tens and thousands of transactions per second. Lightning came along, and of course, that's what we're doing. So really awesome to see further evolution of Bitcoin. Great comments, guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks again for everybody for joining us live. If you guys are here live, we got one more topic to go here. Again, appreciate it. We really appreciate a thumbs up if you guys want to help us get into more people's feeds. And looks like the chat's going pretty good. We got Ken in the chat. Everybody's in the chat talking. Casso, Max, Jake. So fun stuff, guys. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our final topic of the day. Doing pretty good on time. Still got another 25 minutes or so. So let's go to the LocalBitcoins.com story, guys. This is a bit of a sad day, a bit of a sad story a little bit, but we're still going to cover it and talk about it. So we want to know what it means for Bitcoin. The LocalBitcoins, guys, the one and only, you know it, I know it. LocalBitcoins.com has enabled KYC and AML measures. So this is, of course, a Finland-based company, and they have released the statement originally on March 25th. This is responding to a new act approved by Finnish Parliament, the Act of Virtual Currency Service Providers, and this is actually going to go into full effect November. So I'm going to get thoughts from the panelists on this and what you guys think. So Anders, let's go with you first this time. What are your thoughts on local Bitcoins itself ending? Because we've seen things like this recently with like Shapeshift. Will all exchanges be regulated? Will there ever be any demand for non-KYC stuff?
Very much indeed, I think, and thank you. This is the easy topic, I think, to be honest, because any exchange out there that has something that the government can come with a potential SWAT team and shut down will end up with KYC, AML, and LocalBitcoins is it's a company. It has a domain name, and all of these things can be shut down, and that's why people will end up. The people that want to have confidentiality, that want to stay outside of the searchlight of governments that may not be very nice on the citizens, they want to have abilities to trade in and out of Bitcoin and potentially other coins. Not that I'm interested in that. And for that, you need something like BISC. which is an actual application that you download on your computer, so you don't go to a website. Now, given it's still early days, the volume may not be very high, but that's probably where we are headed when exchanges like LocalBitcoins, which was the go-to exchange for anonymity, is ending up like this. Then because BISC is running on top of Tor, it's built into the client. It's a client you download. You put yourself in a situation where you're keeping your incognito mode, and you can buy and sell your Bitcoin without being doxxed.
Yeah, great points. Great points. Yeah, it's a bit of a sad story to see that more and more of these companies are going, KYC, but it's also, in my opinion, a sign of maturity in the actual asset class itself. As Bitcoin becomes bigger and bigger, it will naturally, of course, have the side effect, the network effect of financialization, and so there's going to be people and first world large financial corporations and companies that want to take advantage of Bitcoin. And so, some could argue that like this is good. Some could argue it's bad. For me personally, I think that it's going to push us forward to more anonymity because there is still a demand, in my opinion, for this stuff. There's still a demand for the ability to buy Bitcoin anonymous. So I don't think that it's going to go away. And you mentioned BISC, great. We have to always recommend BISC, to buy and sell Bitcoins. Awesome place.
I just want to add one comment, really,
Sure.
because all of this discussion is only relevant for maximum 10 years, in my opinion. Once the entire world's money is Bitcoin and you don't have the trading in and out from your local currency like US dollars to Bitcoin, but everyone just has Bitcoin, which is where we're going, then it's not going to be a relevant discussion, because everything will be like everything you buy and sell will be in Bitcoin. You'll have privacy in Bitcoin, and anyone who has Bitcoin can use it without exposing themselves. So I think, in 10 years, this is a totally irrelevant discussion.
Actually,
Yeah.
I might have to disagree with that.
Oh no! Well, let's go to Ken. Before we go to Ken, because the goal, right, is, and I think Ken, you would agree, the goal is to eventually have a circular economy, like with Bitcoin and crypto, and the ability to issue fiat. And I think you hate fiat probably just as much as the rest of us can. And so but we know that the traditional financial system, of course, isn't going to roll over entirely. So they are going to do things like this. They are going to try to KYC everything and fight back in their own way. But Ken, what do you think? Do you think that this is going to make a big difference? Do you think that people will just replace this with something else? And go ahead and give us your thoughts on the disagreement with Anders.
Well, you mentioned this is a sign of maturity, and I would like to say this is more of a sign of conformity. This is legacy contributors that have built their monopolies off of Bitcoin's back, conforming into the legacy's regulations and fitting itself into their box, which is unfortunate. And like you mentioned, any company that does this is going to be subjugated to those regulations. It just sucks that they just, like Eric Voorhees, I would have expected to just dismantle Shapeshift before he started to go KYC, just out of like the sheer passion that he had early on when New York City tried to do that, and he just left. That was a real big statement. And if he would have made another statement like that, that would have given he would have given maybe LocalBitcoins the confidence to do the same and not conform. And what I worry about is, like, he mentioned, like, in the future, 10 years from now, when we're all spending Bitcoin, this may not be an issue. But they're already implementing KYC with fiat at, the Apple store. When I go to buy anything over $1,000, if I want to buy a $2,000 computer, I have to go through KYC, even if I'm spending fiat dollars. So to think that this trend will end when Bitcoin becomes mass adopted is insane. It's just going to be more everywhere. You're going to have to show your driver's license like you do before you buy tobacco. They scan your driver's license just so they can check. It's not to see if your ID is real or fake. They're checking you into their system. So, hey, he just bought cigarettes, and they're selling that data to somebody. They're going to do the same thing when you come in to spend your Bitcoin. Doesn't matter if it's $1, $2. If you're spending crypto, I bet they're going to need your ID. They're going to scan your ID. They're going to get your KYC so they can accept the BTC. Probably not under $1,000, maybe over $1,000 like they do with fiat. But it does give me the chills when I think about the power that they have with things like Chainalysis and Nero or whatever, with like Coinbase. And the ability, what they're enforcing now with fiat is cash, like you said, the KYC just to buy a computer. They can do a lot of damage with the data that they can force you to KYC into. And it's not like worry about what you're buying, but more worry about who you're giving your data to. You know, when you see KYC, you know, it's not really, you know, nothing. It's you're giving up your privacy. You're going all in on your privacy and you know, trusting somebody else with that information and all that data. And they're obviously going to turn a profit with any data that you give them. So it's just, it's a downward spiral circle if we start to be okay with things like Shapeshift and local Bitcoins implementing KYC. And I called this when Goldman Sachs acquired Poloniex. I warned everybody that KYC implementation was coming to Poloniex. Get your coins off the exchange. I know dozens of people I can reach out to at any given moment that probably have from 10,000 to 6 figures locked on Poloniex because it's not worth them giving up those KYC information. They might as well think that money's dead to them, because if they give up that information, they may be dead to their government. You know, this is an escape from financial scrutiny, you know, and economic, you know, sovereignty, being able to do things freely. And if you have to give up KYC to do that, like the chat mentioned, you know, Venezuela and India and other countries that really depend on this technology and use local Bitcoins as a means of freedom, financial freedom, they're going to be the ones that hurt the most. Not you, me, and all of us that have working Visa cards and a bank account. It's going to be the people that need Bitcoin as a you know, plan B. They need to get in the lifeboat right now, and they're being asked if they're on the list. It's not right.
Yep, and this, of course, is a continuous cat and mouse game with the chain analysis, with the you know, with the KYC. They're going to implement some stuff. We're going to implement some stuff, and it's just going to be kind of going back and forth. I do have high hopes for privacy on Bitcoin. There's just so much technology out there coming down the pipe, but you know, it is a ways off. There are ways, of course, to use Tor and various things, but it's tough. If you want your privacy, you have to work for it, and you have to take it. You know, as Trace Mayer always says, if you want your sovereignty, you have to take it.
KYC just encourages more money laundering. You know, if I have to go through KYC and I don't have a driver's license, I'm going to find the nearest guy in my neighborhood that has a local Bitcoins or a Coinbase or whatever account, and he's going to charge me a premium to use him as a service provider. You know, they're just creating more middlemen by doing this. The same, you know, reason we have problems with the drugs in America is, you know, they create these extra middlemen, and they don't need to do that. We've seen that with regulated cannabis. You know, it's just unfair to see this happening, and I don't think, you know, it's a good trend to keep going.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing is that you know, we have all these trends going on simultaneously. So we do have that trend going on of more exchanges getting regulated in KYC, and we have the trend of financialization. But of course, we do have the trend of more people, you know, actually owning and learning about Bitcoin. And so I think hopefully that we can create these circular economies, and I think, Ken, that these circular economies are going to be so powerful in 10 years that they really will rival governments, and they really will not be able to be fully shut down like things can be today. But of course, that's some huge speculation. But you know, the power of Bitcoin and open finance with Bitcoin is really not something that can be messed with. And of course, it's small right now because the guys are big. You know, the traditional financial system is big, the KYC is big, but I just don't know that they'll always be able to retain their power when this unstoppable force is growing. Because of course, Bitcoin is an unstoppable money, and I think that you know, this will create economies that might not be so easily bullied. But we'll have to see. So great comments, Ken. Thank you so much for that. I do want to hear from Stefan here next to see what he thinks on this. What do you think, and maybe on Ken's comments too? Like, is this just a sign of things to come, Stefan, or are we all going down the KYC route, or do we have some hope? Is there some hope, Stefan? Let us know.
So look, I think great comments by both Anders and Ken. We have to recognize that, like, obviously, I'm not a fan of AML or KYC laws, right? Let's just put that up straight up. But we just have to recognize this is the world as it is. The government will try to respond to what we do and, you know, what people do, and people will try and find other ways, right? So hopefully, my hope is that people will look to other ways to get Bitcoin. So they might try to earn Bitcoin, right? They might set up a BTCPayServer. Maybe it'll drive. So it's kind of like, think of it more like action and reaction, right? So like, if the government tries to clamp down this way, then people might try some other way, right? So for example, they may start buying under $1,000 they may start using services like Azteco or Fast Bitcoins and so on, and buy in parcels under 1,000, therefore avoiding the AML kind of laws. But then let's say in a few years' time, the government says, no, even for transactions under 1,000, you got a KYC. Then people will try it some other way, right? They may try a new local Bitcoins, and it just becomes kind of like this constant game of regulatory whack-a-mole where somebody is setting up a new local Bitcoins and then the government is shutting it down, or it gets big enough and then the government shuts it down. So it's potentially, it's just going to be like that. The other way is obviously if people are really good with kind of using Tor, using, coin joining technology that they can try to buy on an exchange and then mix afterwards. Although obviously at that point, the government knows you have Bitcoin. So that's obviously a decision that you must consider. You've got to consider as some of the privacy legends like Chris Belcher says, you got to consider your threat model. But ultimately, we should expect these things to happen, but also understand that there will be responses. And some of these responses are simply just we develop. Bitcoiners end up developing better technology such that it's easier to receive payments. So, for example, now Eclair is a really great, easy receive-enabled Lightning wallet on your phone. You don't even, so obviously the best model is, have the full node at home and connect to that. But we're going to see more and more of these alternative methods come up.
Absolutely. And like I keep saying, like I keep telling people, it's a cat and mouse, right? It's a cat and mouse game, privacy versus KYC. And so it's really important that we just keep fighting, that we keep letting people know we have important shows and podcasts and content creators out there, like some of the people on this show. And it's just important to keep getting the word out that that Bitcoin doesn't have to actually be KYC. Like there are amazing solutions out there like BISC, and even HODL HODL is great. I don't think that they're fully KYC yet. They're a pretty great exchange. And then you have got to give some shout outs always to Fast Bitcoins and Azteco, right? The ability to buy Bitcoin with a gift card completely, anonymously with cash at a local 7-Eleven or something. So that is going to, I think, take off as well. And so it's just going to be this cat and mouse. We just have to keep fighting and keep pushing, because this is what we have to do, guys. We have to stay vigilant, and it's really, really important. So James, last but not least, of course, let's see what your thoughts are on all of this craziness discussion so far on the KYC. Go ahead. What do you got?
Yeah, no, I totally second Anders' point. Like anything that can be shut down will be regulated. If Bitcoin has any meaningful utility in the society, that's a natural progression that we're gonna move to. But I think one of the interesting points is also like as because like identity is fundamentally in opposition to censorship resistance, right? If my identity in my spending and my transactions is revealed, then obviously I can be shut down very easily, or I can prevent it from doing those. But the point I wanted to make is I think also the way we design Bitcoin products and applications will need to fundamentally change, right? Like if I'm a product manager for an iOS app today, I'm going to make it simple. I have a balance. There's no real UTX models that the user exposed to. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, as frictionless as possible, so that people getting onboarded can have a great experience. But if Bitcoin is under threat and I acquire my Bitcoin through a KYC exchange, or if I send Bitcoin to a merchant who to whom I leak sidechain information, all that can link my identity not only to that transaction, but the entire wallet cluster that chain analysis can determine, right? So all the UTXOs that my wallet control potentially can be linked to my identity. And I think that's something that the user today is not exposed to at all, right? And I think as we design products, as the Bitcoin reality goes more towards having to manage, design, and work with wallets in presence of KYC, also in presence of chain analysis, the products have to evolve as well. So I have a certain output in my wallet, and it's heavily linked to, I don't know, Coinbase. And so I make a decision as a user that I send this either to a Lightning channel or to a coin join, which obviously makes the experience from the user more difficult. But maybe as the users become more sophisticated, this interface evolves into a more intermediate or even an expert interface. So I think we talk about UX and Bitcoin all the time, like it's just too hard for people to get onboarded. I will almost argue that I actually think it's going to get harder, right? As the privacy situation becomes more difficult, like the knowledge that you need to have to be able to work in Bitcoin potentially will be a little more difficult.
Yep, great points. And we're all learning, more and more. We're learning about how Bitcoin works. We're learning how we can have the most amount of privacy. And it's all about who you follow and the amount of information, the amount of information that you get. You just got to make sure, guys, that you get as much as you can, because this is so new. There's no 800 number to call, and there's always a salesman out there ready and waiting to take your Bitcoin. So really great. Thanks, guys, so much for your comments. Really appreciate it, especially Stefan waking up at being here at 6 a.m. his time. Thank you so much, man. I had a great time as usual. Of course, you guys' content was awesome and epic, and I definitely learned something. I hope everybody else learned something as well. So, Stefan, go ahead. Why don't you tell us where we can find out more about you, sir?
Yeah, guys, you can find me by searching Stefan Livera podcast on your Google, Spotify, Apple, all that, and stefanlivera.com. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, check it out, guys. Always lots of great podcasts. Stefan interviews a lot of well-known people in the space, and again, it's mostly Bitcoin and economics focused. So if that's up your alley, guys, definitely check out Stefan's content. And we got Ken Bozak, who covers everything under the sun. This guy goes everywhere. I can't. It's hard to keep track. It's a shame that this man does not have his own reality show. Somebody fund this guy a reality show. Ken, where can we find out more about you?
Netflix. I got my own show. No, it's Ken Bozak, KENNBOSAK. You can Google that or go to kenbozak.com. Find me podcasting daily. I have an open forum podcast, so there's a link on my Twitter. It's a pinned tweet. You can click the link and schedule any day or time that you want to come on the podcast and talk. And I've had some really awesome guests. Even recently got to talk to Alina Vernova of Casa and talked about Casa and Casajaro and the nodes and everything. And you can find me streaming every day playing blockchain games. I actually play games that utilize blockchain tech. So I play my Ethereum, Steam Monsters pretty much every day. And some of the times you even catch me winning a couple tournaments where I make decent money playing these blockchain games. So check out my live streams, Ken Bozak on YouTube.
Awesome, man. Making money playing games. Man after my own heart. That is awesome. Thank you, Ken. Mr. James, and your awesome course. Where can we find out more about you, sir?
Thank you. Teachbitcoin.io.
Yeah. Keeps it simple, guys. Come on, James. What's your Twitter handle, man?
I'm at dg_James.
Yep.
So that's my Twitter. So what I do, I teach Bitcoin over an online course. I do a in-person seminar with Decker from Blockstream and Schnelly from Core. That's Lucas's 21 lectures that happens, I think, 2-3 times a year. And otherwise, you'll find me at conferences. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Definitely check out James and James's course, guys. Of course, these guys are all linked to in the show notes and description before or below. Anders, where can we find out more about you, sir?
Probably best find me on Twitter at ANDERS_. And also, I would highly recommend people to try out MathBot. It's mathbot.com, where people, kids, adults, whatever, can start learning math from entry level all the way up to sophomore level of university. It's free to play. What we're eventually going to introduce is a Bitcoin incentivization model, because the biggest problem you have as a parent is that your kids don't want to play educational games. They want to play Fortnite at the moment. So what parents can do, for instance, they can put in, say, $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, and then the kids will earn back $900 of that, so 90%, as they pass through all the different levels of math, and then 10% like covers the cost of running the project. So yeah, kids adults will learn math as well as programming, actually. And it's JW Weatherman that a lot of people, I guess, know, who's the founder of that pretty awesome project, I think.
Yeah, man, education is important. That's what it's all about. I think, of course, everybody needs to hashtag learn to code. So great, Anders. Thanks, guys, so much for joining us. Had a great time. Hope you guys all learned something. Of course, we got more shows as always coming right here on the CryptoCast Network. Always stuff to talk about. We got other shows. So hope you guys stick around. And if you guys are new to the channel, definitely hit the subscribe button. If you guys liked what you saw, hit the thumbs up. And of course, if you guys want to support work like this and the channel, definitely hit up our donation address. Thanks again, guys, so much for joining us. Until next time, keep talking Bitcoin. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.